One of the biggest challenges that salespeople and small offices face in the merchant services industry is choosing the right credit card processing company for the merchant and for yourself in terms of compensation. Today I want to show you how we handle that using the InstantQuoteTool.com. Once I sign in, I'm taken to a screen that shows all of my current prospects. Today, I want to add additional programs and processors. So let's say, for example, I started selling for a new company called XYZ Processing, and I wanted to see how their programs compared to programs of other processing companies that I'm already working with. I would click on this little spot right here and click on my profile. Then I would click Manage Programs. Now when I click on this, I'll be able to see all of the existing programs that I have loaded in. This would include public programs that everybody has inside of the system. These would also include private programs that are ones that I have created for myself. Now, in order for us to get a good look at this, let's go up here and click on New Program. And when we click on New Program, we're going to see two different sets of processing companies. Down here, we have to choose an existing public company that's already in the system. Now, you may or may not have these particular companies here. On my profile, these are three companies that I have here that are public. The three at the top, these are ones, and you can see from the names, these are ones I've created, but these are test companies, and these are companies that only show up for me. And so when you create a new processing company or you create a new program, that's of course only going to show up for you or for your team. Now let's start by creating a new processing company. So up here at the top, let's call it XYZ Processing and create the processor. And we can see that the processor was successfully created, and here it is right here. So now I can either show that one, edit, destroy it, or I can create a new program. And so all we do is we just have a name field for the processor because this is just simply a way for you to organize your programs by processing company. When you click on Create a Program, you're going to be taken to our program wizard. And the program wizard is designed to be very, very user-friendly. And you can even do this from your smartphone or tablet with ease. It is mobile ready. So let's go ahead and name this specific program. And so keep in mind that each processing company may have multiple programs. They may have programs that are different based on compensation, different based on minimum pricing guidelines, different based on things like the equipment that is used for that program, or even different pricing parameters. For instance, your company may have a flat rate program. They may have a mobile swiper program. They may have a point of sale program. So these are all different programs, and you can enter as many programs. It's unlimited. You can enter as many as you want into the system. So we start by giving our program a name, and we'll call this one XYZ Standard. So this is the standard program for XYZ Processing. And again, this is just for your use. It's a name so that you can see what that is, and I'll show you how the comparison works in a moment. Now, we already have defaults loaded in here, but I want to go through each of these fields quickly for you today. You have your minimum volume. So when we're looking at minimums here, we're talking about the minimum in order to qualify for the compensation of this program. So in this case, on this program, we see a $200 bonus. And what we're saying with this is we're saying that the merchant has to do at least $3,000 a month in volume in order to qualify for this program. Now, the reason that's important is because when you actually go through and do the comparison, if I put in a merchant account and say that that prospect only does $2,000 a month in volume, then that means this program will not show up. Similarly, we have a maximum volume. Now, this is a really important one to understand. You can simply click this little no max button right here, which will take it to 0. And what that means is that as long as the merchant does over 3,000 in volume, this particular program is always going to show up. And that's okay, you can do that, but one thing to keep in mind is to kind of organize your programs a little bit better. Many times you can set up multiple programs because your processing company may have additional bonuses once a merchant reaches a certain level. So for instance, if I uncheck this, let's say that we have an account where once they reach $10,000 a month in volume, instead of a $200 bonus, you get a $300 bonus, just hypothetically. Then we can make this one right here. Let's make this one $9,999, okay? And now we have a $200 upfront bonus. And so now we can make another program called XYZ high volume that is minimum volume is 10,000 and then up from there to, with no max. And what that means is for a merchant doing 3,000 to less than 10,000, they're going to be put on the program that will display for you there is going to be the XYZ standard. But if they do 10,000 or more, then the program that will display will be the other one we'll create, which would be the XYZ high volume. So it's just a way for you to organize so that when you're working with a merchant, you only see the programs that you want to see for that particular merchant. Next, we see the upfront bonus and the residual split, which again, you can change all of these. I just have default data entered in here for you. We have the minimum per item fee. So let's say that on this one, you have to price them at least, let's say 6 cents. And the minimum per item cost on this one is going to be, let's say 3 cents. So you would find this minimum per item cost on your Schedule A. Now the way that this works in practice is that you put in the minimums, meaning the minimum amount that you have to price them at in order to get the bonus. But keep in mind that when you go to the comparison section, you will be able, starting on the, what would it be, actually the 6th or 7th of August 2016, you'll see the feature in there where we're going to have a little arrow that you can click up or down, and you'll be able to increase or decrease the pricing as well as edit the pricing on the final comparison that you choose after the fact. So this is not going to be the pricing that you want to use to sell your merchants at this price every time. This is just the minimum. In other words, we can't go any lower than this. Otherwise, this program doesn't qualify. So you have your per item cost, your bin sponsorship basis points. These are all things you're going to see on your Schedule A. Over here, your minimum basis points of markup. Let's say for this one program, you have to do them at least 30 basis points of markup. We have the terminal type here, so we have several terminal types in here. Again, we'll be adding many more to that, and you can even let us know, support@instantquotetool.com if you'd like to add some terminal types. Eventually, we'll have the terminal wizard. It's actually going to be called the system wizard, where you can go through and add different hardware and software, leasing rates, things like that. Over here, you have the ownership, so loaner, lease, purchase, or rental. And so we'll say this is a VX520 loaner and go to the next step. On the next step, we have our fixed fees. These would be our fixed costs. These are not transaction fees or basis point fees. These are fixed fees. And again, we have two sides. We have the minimum pricing guidelines, which are here, which again, you can change the actual pricing later. This is just the minimum. This is the lowest you're allowed to go. And so you might look at this and say, well, actually, we don't have a PCI fee. Okay, so we're just going to make that 0, and we're going to make the monthly PCI cost 0 as well. Okay, the minimum monthly debit fee. Now you can go ahead and put this in here. Don't worry about whether or not the person does debit. We programmatically figure that out later. So if you put somebody in and say that their PIN debit volume is 0, we're not going to apply this fee to that particular proposal. So our program is very smart. That's why it's called the IQ tool, because it's smart, and it will figure out that obviously if there's 0 PIN debit volume, there doesn't need to be a PIN debit monthly fee. But if there is PIN debit volume and they are accepting PIN debit, this would be the minimum monthly debit fee that you would need to charge. And then down here you have the annual PCI fee as well, and the annual PCI cost if you have that instead of monthly. So some people have it annual, some have it monthly. The way that that works is if you put it in annually, like for instance, let's say it's $79 annually with a $59 cost. What that's going to do is it's simply going to divide those numbers by 12 and apply it to the proposal as if it was monthly. So that way you get a fair comparison. Now in this case, I'm just going to zero these both out, and we're going to go to the next step. Now, this next step is very important to understand. This is the dues and assessments. So first of all, let me say this. If you don't understand what the dues and assessments are, just skip this and go to the next step, because the numbers that you see here, this represents the actual dues and assessments that are charged by Visa, MasterCard, and Discover. And so these are accurate in terms of the current norm, and if those change over time, we keep a very tight hold on changes to interchange. We will update these defaults for you in your programs if you're using the default value. So if you're using the default value, we're going to increase or decrease it based on the fluctuations of Visa and MasterCard. However, many times, in fact, I would say the majority of credit card processing companies now actually do mark up these fees fees. And so it's a way for them to potentially create additional profits or cover the cost of equipment or whatever. And so these may be increased. These are the defaults. This is what they actually are, but you would need to talk to your processing company. And this can be a little confusing because many of them, again, do not even list this on the Schedule A. They don't list it on the compensation anywhere. So many times you need to call them and ask them, what are the dues and assessments? And then you would need to go back in and edit this program, which you can easily do, and put some different information in there. Go to our next step. And this is just our collection of other fees that are remaining. We have a minimum per batch fee. So this is every time they batch their terminal, and then here's the batch cost. The minimum per PIN debit per item fee. So let's go ahead and put this one. Let's say your program, you have to price them at least 15 cents for a PIN debit transaction. And let's say the cost is 5.5 cents. Okay. Next day funding. $9.95. This is a monthly fee here. And then the next day funding monthly cost. Minimum American Express per item fee and the American Express per item cost. Okay. Then we have and again, this one I don't have as a drop down because it varies so much from company to company. This is basically assuming that we're talking about American Express OptBlue. It is really important to understand this. Let's see, right here, the basis points on American Express. The basis point fee, I'm going to put it at 30 as the minimum basis point fee, and the cost at 15. Keep in mind that would be a good number to use for like American Express OptBlue. If you're talking about American Express as a third party, just leave this at 0, and you're gonna have to separate that out because we assume that everybody's on American Express OptBlue. Our algorithm assumes that everybody's on American Express OptBlue moving forward because that's become the new norm. If you don't want to know what American Express OptBlue is, go on YouTube and search for it. I've got several videos on it myself. And then we have the application fee. So if you're required to do an application fee, put that here. You can always add an application fee later, okay? And so if you're required to have one, put it in there. If there's a cost one, you could put that in here. So for instance, if I'm not required to have an application fee, but if there's a $5 cost if I do one, then I'm going to put that $5 in there and make the minimum application fee 0. So I don't have to do one, but if I do one, there's going to be a $5 cost. And now our program will recognize if you have an application fee, we're going to add that $5 of cost. If not, then we won't. Okay? So now we just save this program. And this takes us back to our program page where we see our program here, XYZ standard, and we can see the information that we have there. And I did change a couple things back. I changed this back to a maximum of 30,000. And that way it covers the whole gamut. But again, if I was actually arranging these programs in a way that I wanted as a salesperson, I would put that in at $9,999 or whatever it was, and I would arrange several programs so that only the one that I wanted to show up would show up. And let me show you exactly what I mean by that. Now when we go back here to our prospects, let's go ahead and create a new prospect. So we're going to click on this little blue button down here. And let's go ahead and create, let's say that we have a retail clothing store. Now, when you select a business type, let me show you one of the things you can look at, and we'll call this Susan's Clothing Shop. Now, when I do this, when I click Save and Quote, of course I could put other information in here, but it's going to take me directly to the quote tool. And one of the most important things you're going to want to look at on this quote tool is going to be the average ticket size, okay? Now, if we're dealing with an average ticket size that's $100 or less, or around that $100, like this one's $101, it really doesn't matter that much in terms of selecting the right business type. As long as you're getting close, retail clothing, any retail clothing store is going to be fine, but you do want to make sure that you change this average ticket size, okay? But here's one of the big things that's important to understand. If the average ticket size that our algorithm shows you here is dramatically different from the one that you have, and again, it's higher than $100. So if you had a retail clothing store and the average ticket size was $350, that would indicate a very different type of business. That would be a very high-end retail clothier, and that would be a place where people would be much more likely to use reward cards and things of that nature. And so that's not going to give you a good comparison in terms of creating an interchange table. But let's say that we have a retail clothing store, and let's say their average ticket size is $60. So it's under $100. That's not going to be as big of a deal. We're going to get you a very accurate interchange estimate on those. Usually they're going to match up very, very closely with the business type that you're looking at. So then we can do a couple things here. We're going to name the statement. Let's say this is the June statement. You can really name this anything you want. I just like to do the month because it helps me to kind of organize them when I have multiple ones in each prospect. Then let's do the total volume. So remember, this one works for businesses that have anywhere from $3,000 to $30,000 a month in volume. We should see that XYZ standard program. So let's go ahead and make this one $12,000 in volume. Let's say that they don't do American Express or PIN debit at all, so we can leave that empty. Now we can also, of course, leave the total current fees empty, but I'm going to go ahead and put those in here because we do want to see the savings column. So let's say they're currently paying $425 in fees. We click Create. And the next screen that we're going to see is designed specifically so that you can have a conversation with the merchant. And this would actually be really beneficial if they didn't want to tell you what their total fees were. I would take them to this screen first, and I would say, well, let me just show you what your true cost would be. Now, of course, every processor is going to have some markup in there. We have markup as well. But let me show you what your true cost is. Your true cost should be $140 a month. How much did you pay last month? And if they're going to say, well, good night, I paid $400 or whatever, right? And now that allows you to have a good inroad to get in there and talk to them about how you can lower their fees and ask them what were your total fees last month. So what I'll do many times here is I will do it like this. I'll show you what I'll do. I will say, okay, I don't have any, total current fees are going to be, let's say 0 here because I don't have them. And I'll go to this screen first. And I'll say, well, let me tell you what your total cost would be. So a lot of times they'll say, well, I don't want to tell you what my total fees are. What are your total fees, right? So you can go all the way through and actually show them what your total fees are by clicking Compare Program. And you can go all the way through to the Present and show them what the total fees would be on that program. But I like to just go here first because it really is like something that blows them away when they see that the true cost for Visa, MasterCard, and Discover of processing your $12,000 should be $140. And you can even take them down itemized and say that's because $3,000 of your revenue should have been U.S. regulated, and that should have only cost you $12.76 in interchange. Then you have your Merit 3-based debit. These would be $29.20, and you just go down through line by line and show them how the interchange stacks up. And this is a great conversation piece to get their interest, okay? Now, then what I'll do is when they say, well, I can tell you that my total fees were $425, well, then I hit back, 425, create, and now it's going to, I have that $425 stored in there, okay? Now, a couple things to keep in mind of what's actually happening here. You are actually creating a new statement every time you do that. And so I'll show you that in a minute. Not a big deal at all. You can do it that way. It does work just fine. Next, we're going to hit Compare Programs. And our XYZ standard is right here. And the way that this compares the programs is using 3 different criteria that are, I believe, are the 3 ways that you need to compare processing programs. The first one, of course, is your upfront bonus. Now, this does not include profit true-ups. We're going to add an additional column for that with the August 27th or August 26th rollout. There's going to be a new feature for profit true-ups. Right now, we do not have that. It just gives you, here's your upfront bonus, okay? So you have your upfront bonus. You have your monthly residual, okay? And also, let me make something really clear. The bonus and the residual, those two are always accurate. 100% of the time, those numbers are going to be accurate, okay? The bonus and the residual. And that's because that doesn't have to do with interchange at all. So those numbers you can always count on to be accurate, and they're a great way for you to compare these different programs. Now you can see I made several programs with the same criteria here, and that's why they all look the same because these are really just testing programs. But some of them here are a little bit different. You can kind of see some of the residual numbers. So for instance, a good example, here's a residual only program where there's 0 upfront bonus, but your residual is going to be $60 instead of 30, So you can see the increase there. And this is a really good way for you to just compare different programs and see how much bonus am I giving up versus how much residual am I going to get. Now the savings is going to be accurate based on the data that we have on the statement. So if the total residual was accurate, then the savings is going to be accurate, as well as if the total amount of money that they spent. In other words, if they tell you my total fees were $300, but really they were $350, then obviously this isn't going to be accurate. Or if you use a business type that's not one that we have in our system, and it says that the residual should be $140, but it was actually $220, then this isn't going to be accurate, right? So the savings is where you need to make sure that you look at the residual, make sure that, look at the interchange, and make sure that you selected the right business type, and then the savings will be very accurate. And again, we've tested this for months, and as long as you're selecting a business type that actually matches what we have in our database, and the average ticket size is somewhere close, or it's in that $30 to $100 range where all of them are pretty similar, then this is going to be extremely accurate. Well, now we're going to pick a program. Let's pick our XYZ standard program here and click Present. And that's now going to take us to this screen where we have a program summary. These right here, when it says Visa, MasterCard, Discover, Debit, and Amex, this is not just the total interchange fees. This is now the total fees. This includes the dues and assessments, the interchange fees, the markup, the transaction fees, everything. And then you add all those together plus the monthly fees, and that gives you this total down here. And you can say, well, ours would be $248. Based on the fact that they're paying $425, our calculation here is that we would save them about $176 a month. I can't remember whatever number we put in there. It would save us $176 a month. It also shows the annual savings and the 3-year savings. And then down here it shows the top 15 interchange category types, just to really add some legitimacy to the form here and show you that. Now again, on August 26th, that rollout's going to include the PDF generator, the proposal generator engine, which is going to be amazing, and it's going to make a beautiful PDF. Right now, since you're going to be doing this on your tablet or your smartphone anyway, you can just screenshot this page, email or text that to them so that they have a record of your quote. So that is how I like to compare program processors. Let me just show you one other thing really quick. 2 things I want to show you about the program that's interesting here. When we go back here to I clicked on a little IQ icon up here to take me back to prospects. You can also click on prospects here, but I like the little IQ icon up here. So when we go back here and we could go down to the bottom here and we see Susan's Clothing Shop right here. If we click on Susan's Clothing Shop, first of all, notice that we actually created 3 different statements because remember we kept going back and hitting create a bunch of times. That's okay, again, not a problem at all, but it does create multiple statements when you do that. I just wanted to show you that. This last one here though, if we went back into Susan's Clothing Shop, you don't have to create the statement again. If you click on this statement, it's going to take you right here to this section and you can compare programs, and this is going to create a whole new set of comparisons, so it'll pull in any new programs that were added. So if you added programs and 3 months later you come back and you want to compare programs, you can click that and it will compare programs again and add the new ones that were added. Now we're back here and we're here in these prospects, and I want to show you something interesting. If we went through here, and let's do Susan's Clothing Shop, and we'll click on Quote. Now I want to show you, if you remember, we had something in there that said that the XYZ standard works for, it's available, it qualifies for merchants that do 3 to 30,000 in volume. Now the interesting thing is, if we go in here and put a total volume of $2,000 in, and let's give our statement a name here, we'll call it June 2. And let's take our average ticket size back down to 60 is what we said, and our total current fees on $2,000 is going to be, I don't know, 150 bucks, let's say. So I hit create here. Now it's going to create this. It'll tell me what the interchange should be on this one. I'm going to click compare programs. And now you'll notice that there's very few of them even on here anymore. There's very few on here. You'll notice that a residual only is on here. There's a freedom program. So you have different programs that are on here, but you'll notice that the XYZ standard program is not there, and that's because it does less than 3,000 in volume. So I just wanted to point out that the algorithm does limit this in terms of which processors and which programs from those processors would qualify for that particular merchant. So let me encourage you, again, click here and go to your profile, go to manage programs. Take a little time to go through. If you need any help, just email support@instantquotetool.com and go through and just start adding the processors and programs that you sell for and organize them in a way that makes sense using the minimum and maximum volume so that you can easily see this and only the programs that you want to see are going to show up. And then again, next week, you'll see a little arrow when you go to the comparisons. You'll have a little arrow above there where you can increase or decrease the savings by 20% of the gross margin. And so that will, if you click it 5 times, it'll take it all the way up to break even for each program. And so it'll allow you to adjust the pricing. And then when you click present, you'll be able to further adjust the pricing there. But I wanted to show you this. This is how it's set up right now. And let me know if you have any questions. Support@instantquotetool.com. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoy the tool.